Hello, everybody. Welcome to TheShow.live. I am Mitch Jackson. I'm inviting in my co-host, Jennifer Hoverstad, and we will get today's show rocking and rolling. Nick, it's good to see you. There she is. Hello, Jennifer. How you doing?
I am doing great, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Welcome back to the United States. I can't wait to have you share your adventures
Thank you.
across the pond on the other side of the world with our audience. And we've got Alfredo here joining us. We've got Nick joining us right now. And hopefully in a couple of minutes, Lauren will be joining us.
Absolutely. So you guys, welcome to TheShow.live as we continue to have our friends filtering in here. As you know, TheShow.live is the place where we have weekly conversations on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, about fascinating people using live streaming to disrupt industries and influence change. And today our guest is Lauren Gaggioli. I think, did I pronounce that correctly, Mitch?
It's just, it's Gaggioli. I pronounce it Gaggioli,
we'll ask her.
But it's all good. Either way, hopefully we'll see her and she'll be joining us. Hi, Sue. It's good to see you.
So, and I think today, it's, of course, we try to bring you a variety of people coming from multiple industries. And today we're going to be talking about the education industry, which is really not so much of an area that we've paid particular attention to. So I'm excited to see how Lauren, and of course we've seen it online, but excited to ask her about how she's used this to grow out her business, which started out, wasn't online. She moved it online, and she has had some fascinating things and insights to bring about it. So looking forward to it. There she is. She's on here. So Lauren will be bringing you in here shortly. And of course, I'm joined every week by my co-host, Mitch Jackson.
Hi, everybody.
Mitch, how was the weekend?
Well, my weekend was great, but it was nothing compared to the week that you just experienced. I want to say hi to Eric Fisher from Social Media Examiner. He's joined us. Sue,
Eric.
It's good to see you. Lauren will bring you in a couple of minutes. But one of the things, Jen, that just blew me away was watching our guest today, watching Lauren Gaggioli up on the expert panel on podcasting at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego 2016. She commanded the table with Pat Flynn and Chris Ducker, and it was one of my favorite panel discussions because podcasting is so important and it's so popular right now. And so today, you guys, in addition to sharing different ways that we can help get your high school students ready for college, we're gonna twist Lauren's arm and get her to share with us some podcasting and live streaming secrets that have worked really well for her online business that all of you can use too. So yeah, back to my weekend was great. But listen, you guys, Jennifer just got back from Spain, okay? And I want to hear a little bit about what was your favorite experience? What was your favorite site? What in the world were you doing over there?
Wow. Okay. So I am the marketing director for a company called PSPDF Kit. It is it's tech startup out of Austria. And because there is a large number of team members who work both across the US as well as in Europe, we get together twice a year, once at the headquarters in Vienna and then once somewhere else within Europe to bring everyone together. So this was my first time on a retreat. We were in about an hour and a half outside of Barcelona. So we were very close to the French border. And I stayed in a castle. So I think probably first and most interesting thing I've ever done, never done, and now I've done it, is I stayed in a castle inside a very small village in Spain called Saint Mori, and that in and of itself was amazing. I went sailing for the first time that I can remember in many, many years in the Mediterranean, and that was, it was a little choppy. So Mitch, I think for people who've grown up around water, like I spend many summers down at the coast, things like that. And so water doesn't freak me out too much, but we had some people, it was their first time on a boat and it didn't suit them so well being in choppy water on a sailboat. So you can imagine.
If you're going to be sick, if you're going to feel seasick, what better place is there but on the Mediterranean?
I know.
Spain,
the water was amazing. The food was great. I have zero complaints about Spain. I would gladly go back there. And Barcelona, for people who have never been, the best way I personally can describe it is a mix between Paris and Boston. That's really kind of, I felt where I was. And I love both Paris and Boston. So it just felt very familiar, very comfortable, felt very safe the whole time I was there. So it was just a great experience. So I hope to go back sometime. I would love to.
So let me ask you a quick question. So we talked a little bit before going live about some of the challenges with the internet connections, okay?
Yes.
What is the status, based upon your experiences visiting the country of Spain, traveling around? What's going on with social media? What's going on with live streaming? What's going on with the internet in Spain?
That's a great question. So we saw, just kind of from observation, we saw a lot of Pokemon Go players, although that was in more of the touristy parts.
Really?
So I don't know how much that was actual, Barcelona, like people living there, Barcelona citizens, more than it was just tourists. But otherwise, you really didn't see, you saw the selfie sticks. That was kind of a big like tourist gimmick, selling those things.
Sure.
You just didn't see a lot of people live streaming. Now, granted, I chose not to buy a data package while I was there, so I was solely relying on Wi-Fi to kind of get me around. And the restaurants that we ate at, and of course where I was staying, had decent Wi-Fi. But you can tell they keep the Wi-Fi very close to wherever it is, so other people can't get it. But yeah, so it's certainly, it was not kind of overwhelming like it is probably here in America. Like I really didn't see a lot of Snapchat going on. For the times I could pick up some Snapchat filters, there were a few, but it wasn't as significant as you see it here. So, I'm sure like everything else, it's coming around over there. It just wasn't as prevalent as we see here.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how quickly things change, things improve. We noticed the same thing our last trip over to Europe also. But, it's kind of fun every once in a while, just getting away from everything. Putting this thing in your pocket, right? And just keeping it there. I get it. We have some great shows coming up. Let's go through them real quick before we bring Lauren on. So Lauren, get ready because you're going to be brought on in just a couple of minutes. But next week, we've got Dr. Michelle Dron appearing on the show. She's a professor. She's a TEDx speaker. She's an expert witness, a columnist. She's going to talk about online platforms and inappropriate things happening between people on the online platforms and how we can deal with it. We've got Chris Drubb coming up. We got Sonny Lenarduzzi coming up, which is going to be awesome. Joel Comm, Gary Vaynerchuk. We also have Sarah Moore of Moxie 5 Wines is going to be coming on and talking a little bit about how they're building their wine business and using social to start up a business and share it with the world. And there's somebody that just agreed over the weekend I haven't talked to you about, Jennifer, who's going to be on, Ryan Morrison. Ryan Morrison is out of New York. He's one of the world's top gaming lawyers. So he's going to talk to us about the gaming industry, about what a big business it is, and in fact, how it's dwarfing businesses like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. This is a whole new thing that's happening. So Ryan's picking a date. He's going to be joining us live. So it should be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a great list of people coming up. So you guys make sure that you're following us on TheShow.live. Of course, you can be subscribing to every show directly through the website, so there's no confusion in links. And please feel free to share out TheShow.live on your social media. So as we get ready to bring in Lauren, a quick shout out to our sponsors. I'll give a shout out to rightside.co. Of course, Rightside helps us make sure that you can get to TheShow.live. They provide us with that .live domain. And of course, they have many other great right side of the domain names like .attorney, .ninja, .pub. So whatever your industry is, they have a right side unique domain just for you. And Mitch, our other sponsor.
We have another sponsor, long-term sponsor of the show, and that is Clio, C-L-I-O. Clio is a cloud-based legal practice management software solution that allows lawyers, allows both of us, assuming Jennifer wants to play lawyer and not play social media consulting expert, to manage our businesses. And what I like about Clio is the 24/7 our portal, private portal. It allows our clients to access and get access to their case information, calendaring information, things like that. There's a big Clio function next month, and Gary Vaynerchuk is going to be keynoting at it. So it's a great company that's doing amazing things for the legal industry. Check out Clio.com if you would like to learn more. Why don't I invite Lauren in, and while I do that, I'll give her a proper introduction, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, let me see. I'm going to click there. So our guest today, everyone, is Lauren Gaggioli, and Lauren is the founder of Higher Test Scores Prep. There she is. Hey, Lauren, it's good to see you. She's an online SAT and ACT test prep expert. I know for a fact that what she does works because that's how we first met. Lauren was kind enough to help our daughter with her test prep, and it worked out very, very well. She's also the host of the College Checklist podcast. And one of the things that resulted, Jennifer and Lauren being here today, is that when I watched her on stage on the panel discussion with Chris Ducker and Pat Flynn at Social Media Marketing World 16 down in San Diego, Lauren blew everybody away. I mean, she was the expert on that panel. And I say that with lots of love and with lots of respect to the people on each side of her. But Lauren, you rocked it. So it's great to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch. I really appreciate you saying that.
It was my pleasure.
It was intimidating being on that stage. There were a lot of very experienced people up there.
Well, you're a true pro. And here's what one reason we wanted to reach out to you today, Lauren, is that you're using social media, you're using podcasting to really take what was once an offline business, a successful business that you've managed and you've run and you started up, to having an online digital presence, okay? And maybe starting with the podcast aspect of that, why did you select podcasting to integrate into your business model? And, what are your takeaways and what are some of the tips that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, I have to credit you, as I did on that panel. I have to credit you with having me even understand what the heck a podcast was. And you did it by way of Twitter. So I came, just for everybody watching, I came down the stairs one day after tutoring AJ, and Mitch is standing at the bottom. And he had this look on his face, like we were about to have a very serious conversation. And
serious?
Yeah, you. Shocking, I know. And he goes, Lauren, why aren't you on Twitter? And it was the last thing I expected to come out of your mouth because,
that's what I remember, Twitter. I don't remember podcasting.
Yeah, no, but because of Twitter, because of the accessibility of these thought leaders and industry leaders, that's how I came across podcasts. And so as a on the road tutor, going from house to house tutoring kids, that's how I found this. So, and it was great. Like I finally got to ditch terrestrial radio for good. So I learned a lot. And that's where I actually came across Pat Flynn and Michael Hyatt. And that's what started the ball rolling with me going, oh, I could totally do this differently. And that's how I decided to go online with my courses. Mm-hmm. Now, as you hear, if you build it, they won't come. So, especially in the digital space, I think it's so awesome when you go from having zero web presence to a website and like maybe a Facebook page with 100 likes. And it's great. It feels wonderful, but that's not enough to have people trust you with their kids. I'm teaching SAT and ACT prep. That's not enough of social proof to convince people that they should hand me their hard-earned dollars to tutor their kids. In home, we have that connection. It's a little bit different, but online you have to create that connection, but it's harder to do just with a web presence. And I think that's where podcasting and live streaming really changes the game. So I built it. Nobody showed up. And I was like, well, what next? And I thought, the whole reason I'm here is that I fell in love with podcasts. I felt like I knew these people who were helping me, and they've helped me tremendously. So what if I can do that for families before they ever need me? So, I teach test prep. So I think the logical podcast is teach a test prep podcast. But the only people who would listen to that are nerds like me who actually like this stuff and people who don't want to pay for test prep. Mm-hmm. So to start there doesn't necessarily help. And so what I did is I backed up and I said, I'm working with the most privileged students who have great counselors in school, counselors outside of school. And I, as the test prep tutor, I'm still getting questions across the kitchen table about college admissions at large. And I thought, how can I bring that information to people? Because people ask those questions before they ask about test prep. And that's how the college checklist was born. It was born out of, it's part of my funnel. And it's how I get people to get to know me. And so when the question is, who are we going to prepare with? I'm the obvious answer. I'm sitting right there. So I create that relationship first. And I love the intimacy of podcasting. You're in people's ears. And especially with what I do, I'm helping them with their students. I'm alleviating stress in a way that's incredibly helpful, that parents and students can listen together. It can be a shared experience, and it can be something you do in the car for carpool, once a week you listen to this show and you get a little bit more information and start to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
I love it.
So
I love it.
that was the strategy behind it.
So one part too, Lauren, and I know listening to some of your recent podcasts as well as watching the Facebook page, is you started implementing Test Prep Tuesdays, where now you've made it even more interactive than what you've already described. And I love how you've kind of, brought us up to this point. So talk to us about incorporating Facebook Live into everything else that you're doing to market your business.
Absolutely. I'll say I started Test Prep Tuesday as a total experiment. I was just like, well, let's see how this goes. Because I have a friend who actually was on the panel as well, the moderator, Lou Mongello, who has a ridiculous following in the Disney stream, and he does live streaming every Wednesday. And he gets like 500 people on there, routinely, who are asking him questions, and they play 20 questions. Like, it's really fun and interactive. And so I was like, well, Test Prep isn't awesome, but I didn't start with the Test Prep podcast. So I focused on all this other stuff. Now is it time to sort of bring my expertise to the front and share more on that side and answer the questions. And so that's where Test Prep Tuesday came from. I strategically started it at the end of the school year so I could get comfortable with it over summer when not that many people were paying attention.
Good idea.
And yeah, right. You gotta learn. And I'm pretty comfortable on camera. I have a theater degree, so it's not completely foreign, but at the same time, finding the rhythm and finding what's going to work for the audience, I wanted to have a smaller test pool. And I just knew by virtue of the season, most people weren't going to be paying attention. So I have some stalwart people who are showing up. And now that I've sort of hit my stride and have the routine of how we do the day, how we do the Test Prep Tuesday stream, I'm starting to publish it to my podcast feed as audio only. And the funny thing is, I'll usually get 10 to 15 people who come on live. But the people who follow up afterwards and go, thank you so much for that, is I'm now hearing that, even though it's brand new, I am now hearing that more and more. It used to be the podcast only. It was thank you so much for your podcast. And now we'd like to work with you. Now I am so grateful for the ongoing support that Test Prep Tuesday is offering. So it's just another way in real time to connect with people. And I think, it reassures people that there's a person on the other side of the screen. It's very easy to say, I'm a business and look at me and look at my shiny website and all that. And then they don't know who's behind it. And I say it a lot. If you call, I will pick up the phone, but people still don't believe it. When I pick up, they go, oh my, I can't believe I got you on the first ring. The dog's not going to pick up the phone. So it's got to be me. So it really helps on that front as well.
Absolutely.
Your website presence and what you've done, I guess, apparently since I first chatted with you after you came down the stairs, it's such an impressive calling card. In other words, people that we've sent, go see Lauren. Have you called Lauren yet? No, I haven't had a chance. Here's her website. Go check it out. Inevitably, they come back, wow, that's so impressive. I had no idea that all of these options are out there. So there's a certain value to having that type of web presence because it gives you credibility as for what you do. Promise me after the show, you'll DM me Lou's information. He's the Disney guy, right?
Yeah.
So just real quick, tell everybody what he does.
Yeah, so he's a Jersey boy who has been to Disney. I think they went on a family vacation every year since it opened when he was really little.
Wow.
And he loves Disney World. And so he started a podcast and found this community. And it was just a really organic community that grew out of it. And the offerings he has and the podcast, I mean, it's all really community driven, and he's very much about taking your online presence offline. He's just a fantastic person to look at and emulate, even if you're not a Disney fan. I am, so it helps.
Well, and
he's my weekly podcast I have to listen to, but he's built an incredible following. I mean, walking through the parks with him, it's like being in the parks with Walt. It's crazy. There are selfies and hugs, and you can't walk down Main Street without somebody stopping.
You mean walking through the park with this guy? You know who that is?
When you posted that picture.
So this is Walt Disney on my mom's horse, Rome, and this is at Gates. Gates Pass back in 1956, the year before I was born. But Walt and his family came out to the ranch for a week before I was born, and I promised Lou that I would send him this picture, and I forgot his name. So do me a favor. Well, I mean, because I was focusing on the three of you. So do me a favor after the show and DM me his contact info, because he wanted to have this picture, and I would love to get it over to him. Okay. Funny story. Funny story. And what I was telling him is Walt Disney and my mom drove down to Old Tombstone for the day, and when he came back to the ranch, that's where he got the idea to start Frontierland at Disneyland in Anaheim, is by visiting Old Tombstone. So there's a story behind there he may enjoy. But listen, not to get too far sidetracked, I've always felt bad about not reaching back out to Lou. So now you just reminded.
I'll connect you.
So full circle.
So we've talked a little bit about getting high school students ready for their SAT and their ACT, and how your podcasting and your services will allow them to do that. What are some of the benefits, Lauren, that you've noticed with creating a podcast and then using live streaming, maybe using some of the other social platforms to help amplify what you're doing on your podcast channel or channels?
So it's funny. I think for me, the real power is not in amplification. It's in turning it the other way and using it as a one-to-one connector. So one thing that I do is I have free 30-minute consultations. So I'll help families come up with their testing timeline so that they're doing the least stressful, most effective prep. Okay. And what I'll do is if they mention, say, their student is an athlete and that's something they want to pursue in college as well, what I'll do is be like, in my follow-up email where I get back to them, I say, hey, you mentioned your student wants to play sports. I had the Yale soccer recruiter on, and we talked about the recruiting process. And then I had my husband on, who played baseball at Georgetown for 4 years. And he talks about living as a student athlete, something you should think about before you commit to this 4-year journey, and potential scholarship dollars that come with it that can be revoked if you drop the sport, things like that. So, I can use that and say, I hear you. I hear what you're struggling with, and here's the perfect episode for you. And it's a great way to get people on board to listen to the episode as well. So I use it that way. In terms of more of like an outward, like how to connect and send it to bigger audiences. The fact I didn't choose a interview model lightly. I did it because on the one hand, I don't have the expertise on college admissions, and I'm very much about experiential expertise. So I still take the SAT and ACT as an adult. Wow. Because I'm that on board with, if I can't do it, I shouldn't be teaching.
Well, I think Jen takes it every year too. I think
yes, I'm done with that.
It's pretty common. Yeah, a lot of adults are taking this test for fun. Yeah, so, that's something that I'm big on. And so I want people who have actually led students across the finish line being the ones giving the advice. And so I did that. But at the same time that I'm nurturing my prospects, I'm also nurturing referral sources. So, the community of counselors is really tight-knit. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of groups that, if your episode gets shared, they're all clamoring around it. And some in-school counselors have started to use it to help supplement what they offer, because they say the same thing over and over. It's so nice to have this podcast that they can send out and say, here's your answer. And so Absolutely. There's a lot of different ways that we're doing it. And I'd say it's more old school social. Like I have Twitter, and I bump this stuff out. I just started Instagram, getting more routine with Facebook, but really it's been kind of organic growth.
But when you say you bump it out, I mean, what you're doing is you're sharing your podcast links on the other social platforms, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And do you think that's important to do as a podcaster, or does it depend on the product or service that's being podcasted about?
I think it is important, especially in Twitter. Okay. It's so fast. It's really important, and to leverage different hashtags. We're just starting to play with hashtags on Instagram. There's not a huge college search community there. But what I found in Twitter is actually other college professionals. It's fewer parents. I've gotten a couple parents who will DM me, which is kind of cool. But Twitter is much less my place to meet with parents. It's more my place to meet with peers. Mm-hmm. And Facebook is where I meet with parents, which is why I sat back with Periscope, and I'm not on Snapchat. I know if I want to connect with students, yes, I should be on Snapchat, but I'm not because my parents aren't there and they have the credit card. So ultimately, when it comes to marketing and where to send this stuff, you know, I have to be really strategic, especially because I'm very small. So, you know, I'm really kind of putting my eggs in the Facebook basket, primarily playing with Insta. I love Twitter because, you know, Mitch, it's where it all started.
So do I.
So yeah, it's just a fun platform, but I do that more for me professionally than I do, and to connect with other professionals than I do to meet with prospects.
So Lauren, I think you bring up such a good point, because frequently, you know, a lot of us are tied to some kind of job or business, whether or not we own it and control it. You know, it varies. But sometimes it can be difficult to figure out, well, where does my personal brand come in, and where does my business side come in, and where does it all merge together? And one of the things I noticed as I was researching, you've actually recently started another podcast, at least it's on your personal website. So kind of talk us through that. Like, where have you found, like, where does Lauren's brand kind of stand alone versus with the Higher Test Scores brand?
So I always have loved learning about entrepreneurship and business. So that's always sort of been in the back of my mind. But again, experiential knowledge. I wanted to be able to speak from experience. And now I've, 2.5 years of running the company. I have, another year of research before that. So I feel like now I have a place to take a stand. I also have a lot of friends who are in my class of entrepreneur. And I mean class, like in terms of school, like we're the same year. Like we're not the Pat Flynn's who have been around since 2008 or whatnot. We started 3 years back, and a lot of them are talking about quitting. And I hate that, because these people are incredibly talented. They have so much to bring to the table. And I feel like there's not enough honesty about just how hard this is, about what a lonely journey it can be. So my new podcast, The Unsexy Side, is about sharing that truth in an easily digestible format. And so we use movie analogy. I always say we, it's just me. I use movie analogies as sort of the lens through which I'm going to share the fails and the flops and the successes all together, and make it, fun, a little place where you can go and kind of cry sanctuary when you need a timeout from entrepreneurship.
And will that be strictly on entrepreneurship in general, or as it applies to podcasting and social, or business in general?
Yeah, so it's primarily focused on entrepreneurship. It's less tactical, because I think there's a lot of tactical advice out there. It's more about how everything comes together. I'm running a beta of a podcasting course that I'm kind of creating right now. It's a live-led course, because I think live-led is going to become the new e-course, because again, I think people want to know there's someone behind the screen. I think these like packaged courses where you're like, well, you did this so you could go sit on a yacht. Like, I don't think people are enjoying that philosophy anymore. So I think live led, like I'm in it with you. I'm there to like guide you in real time. I think that's going to become a little bit more of a trend. So that's the idea behind that. But I'm doing a beta to see if it actually works, because I don't want to put something else out there that people will ignore, feel guilty if they don't buy. Like, I want it to be genuinely something that will help.
I think, and I think that's a great question, Jen, earlier, because I think this is a topic that a lot of people today who are trying to start their businesses, they think they want to become an entrepreneur, and they really don't understand how much work's involved. I mean, it's the hardest job in the world, but it can be the most rewarding. It depends on your mindset. And John Ferrara and I, and just keep this in mind, Lauren, reach out if we can help. John Ferrara, who's the the founder of Nimble, just a brilliant gentleman. You might know him. We did a show, and it's so you want to be an entrepreneur. How's that working out for you? Okay, because between the two of us, we're sharing 50 plus years of wins and losses and pros and cons, and it's just, it's one of these things where I think people really need to walk into that life experience with their eyes wide open. And I'm all in. I'm trying to encourage Lauren, as you know, our kids to follow in our footsteps when it comes to being entrepreneurs. But that's a valuable service. I think it's, look, real quick, I don't want to get you sidetracked, and this transition sucks, but I'm just going to share it with you. Now, that's not going to be on the ACT, everybody. But Nick Rishwain, who you know, who was in the audience sitting next to me when you were on the podcast at Social Media Marketing World, asked the question, totally off topic, but can Lauren give us a Star Wars metaphor? She blew us away at Social Media Marketing World with her Star Wars metaphors. You're a big Star Wars fan, aren't you, Lauren?
I am. Guilty.
Why is that? What is it about Star Wars that touched your heart?
It's the same person who basically told me I should be an entrepreneur. It's my dad.
Awesome.
Yeah, he, so I was a theater major. I've been a musical theater nerd most of my life. So I think I was like 5 or 6. I was all dressed up. We were going to see, I think it was Wizard of Oz. And for some reason, they didn't have an understudy for Dorothy and she got sick. So we are literally pulling into the parking garage and they're like, and by the way, tonight's performance has been canceled. So I'm like dolled up, you know, like this was a daddy-daughter date and I'm crestfallen. And he goes, you know, there's something I've been wanting to show you. So at 6, you know, we're sitting on the couch, you know, 30 minutes later with popcorn watching this, you know, space opera. And I was hooked from then on in. Plus Harrison Ford. I mean, even at that age, I was like, oh yeah. So
I love it.
I was all in on Star Wars from a very young age.
And one of your favorite Star Wars metaphor, not to put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I just have the one. So I'm working on it. So what I shared there, and actually what I shared in the first episode of Unsexy Side, if people are interested, it's how a lot of us really think that there's a lot of luck involved. And I take a very different stance. So, you know, if we look at Luke and his spoilers, if anybody hasn't seen it, you should have seen it, blowing up the Death Star in A New Hope at the end, right? There's a lot of factors that we might attribute to luck. Han flies in at the end and, you know, picks off a TIE fighter. We have the Force and Obi-Wan and all this woo-woo stuff going on. And you could say that's why he did it. But really, there's 2 factors that people don't take into account. The fact that Luke used to bullseye Womp Rats in his T-16 back home, and they're not much larger than 2 meters, which is the size of the port on the Death Star. Very convenient. Well written, George. And then the other thing is when he's flying into the trench, I think it's Wedge says, you know, are you going to be able to pull out in time? You're going to be going so fast. There's this hard stop. How are you going to get out of there? And he says it'll be just like Beggar's Canyon back home. So if you are looking at this and you're not thinking about the little bits of information that were dropped before, you could attribute it to luck. But, you know, I wasn't on the stage at Social Media Marketing World because of luck. I was there because I worked my butt off for 3 years. I happened to have great friends who went to bat for me, and that I am grateful for. But if I wasn't up to the task inherently in myself, if I hadn't done the work, then I couldn't have ever been in a place where people would say yes to me. So, and sometimes you don't know. I mean, I don't think Luke was like, I'm going to bullseye this Womp Rat so I can blow up a, you know, Death Star in the future. That wasn't why he was doing it. Sometimes you have to do the work and you don't necessarily know why you're doing what you're doing. You know, another instance of that is networking. I think that's hugely important. It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, we sit in our little bubble and we're in our office wondering why people aren't talking to us. Go to a conference. I know it's expensive, but go to a conference. I have met Michael Stelzner multiple times. I knew a lot of people who are on the staff of Social Media Marketing, of Social Media Examiner, because I'd been out at these events. And so that recognition also opened the door. So sometimes you don't know what it's leading to, but you've got to get yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, connect with people. Because ultimately these platforms are social. And so many people use them as like, I'm just pushing my message out. Why isn't anybody talking to me? Well, talk to someone first. engage someone first. And that's how you will be able to take those steps forward.
Those are such great points, Lauren. I mean, I think it's good, especially for entrepreneurs to hear that, because like you said, it's easy to get defeated. It's easy to get to a point where you feel like you're in a hole and you can't, dig yourself back out, whatever. But I love that, like just the idea of continuing to push forward. So tell us though, if you have an example and, perhaps maybe in your digital marketing, trials and errors, what has been maybe a road that you've gone down and you had to kind of retreat from because you were like, this is not going the direction I thought it would go?
It's funny because I'm so throw things at the wall and see what sticks kind of girl. I don't know that I have one path that I've been like, ooh, maybe not. I think webinars are probably I have one webinar that I do that people love, and it's my PSAT webinar. It's the one where I actually teach strategies for the PSAT. That's had the most traction so far. But I've done things like I have a video right now where it's the 3 biggest myths and the 3 biggest mistakes around testing. And it's just not converting. People aren't clicking it. And it's been up there for a really long time. I've done it as a webinar. I've done it as a video. And it's one of those things where I think for a long time, I forgot just how busy parents are. Because I think I'm a technician. I'm in, my SAT, ACT bubble. Right. It's easy for me to forget that that's not very interesting to most people, even if what I have to share is helpful. So I'm retooling that. And I'm going more active, like how to overcome testing overwhelm. That's going to become sort of the new tack. And then I'm going to slip in those little nuggets of, hey, and you should avoid this too, because people don't care that they call me after they've made the mistake.
Right.
It's nice, it's helpful, but oftentimes I'm getting people after the fact. So I need to find the balance between what's actionable in the moment. And for those planners, have that information there too, for those people who are going to use it. But there's a lot of people who are just, everything's last minute. That's the other thing I'm learning. Nobody's planning ahead anymore. I think the immediacy of Amazon Prime and the immediacy of social and online offerings, people are thinking differently. So you have to look at how people are engaging and how they're working in their life and find how you fit into that, as opposed to trying to force people into your paradigm.
Definitely.
You in your words, Lauren, you said you worked your butt off, setting up some of this stuff. And I think that's an element that a lot of people kind of don't do. In other words, we had lunch together. Lauren, my wife, Lisa, and I, 3 of us had lunch together, about a year ago, I think it was. I don't know.
Yeah, we're way overdue.
It seems like just yesterday.
Gotta do it again.
But what I was listening to is I was listening to Lauren talking about setting up her podcasting and video series and her course outlines, how much time during the course of a day over the next week or two she was going to be spending setting things up, executing, taking action, not just talking to us about it, but actually going out and doing it. And I think that's where 99.99% of the people drop the ball, because it's not easy, and because it's hard, and because it can be depressing, and it can be exciting, and there's so many emotions. And that's what separates, I think, a lot of successful entrepreneurs from a lot of wannabes. And Lauren, you do a very, very good job at that. But I think we want to emphasize that for our listeners, both live and recorded, because it's something that people can really need to pay attention to and take seriously.
Yeah. The amount of time, I would say you need a partner in life who gets it too. I cannot give any more mad props to my husband for being like, yeah, if you want to work till 3 a.m. for a whole week, totally go for it.
And you did.
And he's
and you did.
Supportive. Yeah. Oh yeah. He saw the possibilities. He never made me feel bad. There were months where money wasn't coming in. He never was like, oh, well, your dream isn't paying off. He knew this was a long play. And now, 3 years in, he's like, I kind of like this because I'm calmer now because I front loaded the work. Right. So I think that's the other thing. A lot of people build a course and they're like, why is nobody handing me money for this? Because I just showed up and built this thing. The payoff is down the line. making the course is putting all those one-on-one hours you would have to do to make that up in the future. Like, it's doing all of that at the beginning, but that's like 10% of the work. It's all about marketing too. So I would actually do things differently. I would start my podcast a lot sooner, and then promise the course, because that's actually what I had to do for my ACT course, because I knew how much work went into it, and I had a really hard time staring that demon in the face. It took me 6 months longer than it should have. I finally was like, I'm delivering this course in 3 months. I know a lot of you have been waiting on it. If you're interested, buy now. It'll be ready in 3 months. And I had people waiting who had money in hand for the beta, and that got me to finish it. But oh my gosh, course creation is awful. Oh, it's horrible. If anybody tells you it's fun, they're trying to sell you something. So don't listen.
Did you guys know you have something in common, the two of you?
Wes?
Yeah, let's say, Lauren, when you're getting stressed and burned out and it's time to call it a day and you push everything away on your desk, is there something that you enjoy doing? Do you have a hobby? And what might that be?
Oh gosh, I game.
Hot
I drink
yoga?
beer.
Oh, beer.
I make beer. I do hot yoga too.
Oh, look.
Beer and yoga.
I have
Girl.
2 beer drinking yoga superstars on the show today. Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, my husband and I are homebrewers.
Oh.
Do you brew or?
My husband sells beer, and he's a home brewer. I do not quite have the patience for home brewing, but I am like, I love, taste testing. I'm all about. So we were actually out, Lauren. Coronado is a beer that my husband sells. So we were out there last weekend for the 20th anniversary of Coronado Brewing. So we were in San Diego for 2 days celebrating, just the brewery and everything. But yeah, big fan of craft beer, and certainly Southern California has plenty of it to go around.
Yes, that's actually our next venture. We're starting a homebrewing podcast and craft beer podcast.
Well, you'll have to, now that we're friends on Facebook, now that we're real friends, you will have to tell me, and I will be glad to broadcast that out. That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Coronado. So amazing.
And I'll get some of my friends together and we'll do the taste testing. How does that sound? See?
Sounds great. Yeah, we're It does. And we need feedback because we're starting to head into competition season. We're like starting to plan our next brews. So yeah, refining. We need all those palates informing us. So we'll get together. Mitch.
One of our sponsors, Lauren, he's popped in. He's been in the chat for a while now, but Mark Goeth from rightside.co, and he is suggesting maybe a craftbeer.live for you. So that could be a nice little podcast domain right there.
That would be amazing. Yeah. All right, Mark.
How cool is that?
You and I, we're gonna.
How cool is that? I love the fact that we're able to share the human side of what all of us enjoy doing, which have nothing to do with our businesses, but it has everything to do with bringing all of us closer together, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I mean,
absolutely.
There's a podcast right there.
You're a big proponent of the human side, I hear.
I just like being human. It beats the alternative,
Right.
I saw an amazing show last night on 60 Minutes about these cute little monkeys down in the Congo that, unlike other apes, that when you look at them in the eyes, they feel like they're being threatened. And so you always want to look the other way. With these particular types of related to the chimpanzee, they love looking at you straight in the eye and making contact. And so, it's interesting. It's nothing like being human or one of those monkeys. So
also yes.
So let's do this, Lauren. If our live or recorded audience would like to connect with you, whether it's for their students testing, needs, or to learn more about podcasting, to learn more about being an entrepreneur, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So higherscorestestprep.com is my website. You can find all of my links and everything there. That's all college, SAT, ACT, all of that is there. On the business side, laurengaggioli.com. My Facebook page is probably the best way to connect, or Twitter. It's all at Lauren Gaggioli, or facebook.com/Lauren Gaggioli. That podcasting course, once it's out of beta, once I get feedback, might be going live. So if you're interested in a podcasting course that's very much focused on how it feeds your business. That is the way to go. So yeah, that's going to be, I think it's going to be kind of a game changer. It's less focused on the tech, because tech is actually somewhat easy. It's more about how are you strategizing? How are you having this become a part of your funnel in a more effective way? So that's the best place to connect with me.
Fantastic. That sounds awesome.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know we were talking in the intro about how we had not had someone who's, kind of brought the insight and maybe the clientele that you work with, like you said, those parents on a regular basis in that education field. And so we really appreciate you bringing some new insight. I know I've gained some new ideas just from listening to you talk. So really excited to put some of those things into action. So thank you very much, Mitch. Yet again, like connecting people all the time. So another great guest brought to us by Mitch.
Well, thank you both for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely, Lauren. This has been fantastic. It's always good to see you, and I hope you got my private message earlier today about Garrett. We're very excited about that. Okay, we'll check it out.
I have to get on and
Something
check it out.
happened yesterday, and it has to do with testing, everybody, but we have to keep it private. But Lauren, listen, reach out to us when you expand upon these other ventures. If there's anything that Jennifer and I can do, it would be our pleasure. And like I said, once the two of you touch base and you get into the crafted beer type of scenario, reach out to me. I'll bring my buddies down and we'll give it the real taste test. Okay.
Sounds good. I'm in.
All right, you guys. Well, listen, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on TheShow.live. Everyone have a great week. Lauren, have a fantastic day. Jen, make it a masterpiece. And everyone, stay in tune, share the show, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.